In this video, we'll talk about the rate of change indicator and how you can use this indicator to analyze an instrument to see if it's good for scalp trading or swing trading, and just get a little bit more information on the actual percentage change that something has. All right, so let's jump right in. We're looking at KNC, BTC, and Binance. Let me change to the one-day time frame. And I'll add an indicator here, and it's a built-in indicator on TradingView. It's called rate of change. Now, there's a couple others here created by other people. There's one or two of these that are pretty good, but I won't cover that in this video. I'll do another video on those. But here, if we click on rate of change, you'll see an indicator will pop up. And what this basically does is it has a period that it looks back, and it will show the rate of change from that period based on the close. Okay, now you can change all those things, and I'll talk about that here in a second. So for instance, we can see here, let's just look at this big run up here. This big run up was a 62% change from a 9-day period, right? Now we can easily change that by clicking on the options and say, let's go to the inputs, and let's say, what was that change from the previous day? All we have to do is change the length and go OK. And now we can see that from the previous day, it's actually from the zero line, but from the previous day, right, it was a 23%, 25% change, okay, from this day to this day. So this is good because it allows you to look at in an instrument the how often a change happens or how often a change occurs, right? So maybe you're looking to swing trade this, right? And you want to understand how often does it hit a profit potential of 10%. Well, we can see here, if we draw the horizontal ray here, right, on a day period, right, with a day time frame and a day look back, and for some reason it's not drawing here. This is the 10 line right here, right? It hits the 10 line, the 10% line, pretty frequently, right? It hits it here, it just hits it, right? It just hits it. So really, this would tell you that, okay, well, really my profit potential on some type of swing trades, right, is something below 10%. That's within the deviation of how this instrument trades, right? You see that? So let me make this very clear. If we change the style of this line, this is the zero line, and we turn it red, make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. This is the zero line, and then from this point to this point is whatever that rate of change is, right? So on this candle here, and I don't know why it's not selecting. There it is. This candle here, right? The rate of change from the previous day was 24%, okay? The previous one, right, was just about 1.4%, right? And it was decline from the previous day, right? Now keep in mind, this is the rate of change from the previous period, okay? So this is something that can be extremely helpful, especially, like I said, if you're doing swing or scalp trading, because you can even have a look back time of, let's say that you want to do swing trades that are at max 3 days long. You can see here what's your profit potential on average for 3 days, right? It hits well within 20%, right, on a lot of these days. Here, this is the 20% line. Now, the other thing to look at when you're looking at the rate of change is that in the scalp trading especially, I talk about buying retracements, and I go into detail about the best way to buy retracements in scalping and how that's really the answer to scalp trading. And you'll see here on these retracements, you can also look and see how far the retracements. And then you're looking to say how often or how quick do those retracements turn around and get back to the zero line, right? Because not only is it making the profit from the retracement amount, which here is right around 12%, right, all the way up to the zero line, but then it's actually exceeding it as well, right? So it's just a different way of looking at the chart, except you have the real numbers. You have the real actual physical percentage changes. Comparatively to here, you do have the real price numbers and you see the price action, but here you're actually looking at the real percentages. This could be extremely helpful in setting your profit targets, in setting your average profit targets, and looking at the average profit potential of something, even the average potential pullback, right? What's the average rate of change or percentage retracement that this instrument has, right? So hopefully this is clear. The other thing that you can do that I find extremely helpful here is that you can actually change the actual zero line. So let's say that I only want to see things with a baseline of 8, right? Only at 8. So I can do 8 here. And now I'm going to see only things that are on a baseline of 8. So that means everything above this red line is above 8. Okay? Now I can do this on the inverse as well. I think that's the right way to say it, right? -8. And now I'm seeing everything that has gone down -8. So this gives you a lot of power to create a system of trading based on percentages, based on rate of change, right? And I'm using the 3-day look back here. I typically have it on 1 day just because I like to trade. Some of my trades I do 3 or 4 days, but I like to do 1 day. But you can see this is the rate of change from 1 day. You can see how many days does it go down 8%. You'll see that. How many days does it go down 8% from the previous day, right? Does that make sense? I'm asking you like you can actually answer. Sometimes I do that in videos. So the other thing that makes this very powerful, let me move this back to the zero line, okay, is we'll go 0, is that this works on obviously other time frames. So I can look at let's say I can look at the 4 hour and I can say what's the average rate of change on the 4 hour, right? How often does it hit? Let's say that I'm looking to do 4 hour swings, right? Well, what's my average profit potential for doing 4 hour swings? Now, this comes down to the strategy you're buying, right? But you would look and say, well, how often does it go down 4%, right? And then how quick does it retrace back to the zero line, right? So you can just see this by just putting in, if we put a horizontal ray here. I don't know why. I think it's because I'm recording the video. So here we can see at how often it goes down 3%, for instance. How often does it go down 3%, and then how quick does it go back to the zero line, right? So if we buy on retracements, we can see that on these various periods of retracements, typically when it hits that 3% range, it's heading back to the zero line pretty quick, right? We can just see that. Now for scalp trading, this becomes even more powerful because what you can do is you can go to the 15-minute time frame, okay? We're on the 15-minute time frame, and here we're seeing the rate of change here, and we can actually see the same information, right? We can see on a retracement, right? One thing you do have to look at, right, is obviously you have to look at the price in conjunction, right? Because this rate of change here is a negative rate of change, right? It's down, right? So it's down here all the way to 2.7%. This move is a 2.7% down, right? But it gives you a good indication of what happens, right? On how quick that rate of change actually slows down, right? It's looking at this, the way to look at it is it's not saying that it's using the previous time period, okay? So that's what you have to keep in your mind, because this can look deceiving. This can look like that it goes down 2%. That's not what it's saying. What it's saying is from this period, and if we use the arrow here, from this period, right, which is right here, to this period, the rate of change, this is the difference of the rate of change, okay? So you have to look at it from that perspective. You have to realize that from that perspective, that's what it's telling you. That's the information that it's telling you. It's not telling you that on average it goes down 3%. It actually goes down more than that, because you can see here, this whole move here is 6% down, right? or 7%, almost 7% down. This whole move here is 7% down, right? And it only registers here as 2.7, okay? That's because it's using the previous time period, right? Now, on some instruments, you can get more advanced with this, and you can say, basically, I want to see 4 time periods, right? And now you're going to get a more accurate picture of how far it actually goes down. So you'll see here, I get a more accurate picture of that actual price action, don't I? Meaning that this retracement here is 6%, right? Right around 6.5%, 7%, whatever. So here is real close to that. It's 6 or so, 6.1%, right? Right around that range, right here at this bottom. So you can change the actual time frame, right? Or the length here to then match the way that instrument trades to then give you a average retracement or an average profit level, right? Each one of these is different. You have to sometimes look at it and just gauge it from there. But this is one of those things that I do in scalping a lot, in addition to amplitude and change, is to really understand when I'm looking at the 15-minute or 5-minute time frames, is what is the true profit potential, or what should be my maximum scalp range to trade in, right? What is that maximum scalp profit activation that I should have? And this is different between each different instrument, but it allows me to maximize my scalp profits, right? And I'm maximizing it even more because I'm typically buying on retracements, and I typically can then make those two spreads, meaning the spread from the decline and then the spread from the actual rise up, right? So moves like this, right, are prime examples. If you buy here, that's a 3% move, right? Well, looking at a chart with the rate of change set at the right parameters can give you a good, accurate picture of how often that 3% move actually happens, all right? So hopefully that's not too complex without really going into more detail, but that's how you can use this rate of change indicator. The other thing that I like about this is that or another advanced thing you can do is we're using the close right here, okay? So that means it's using the closing price of the bar. Well, when you're scalping, typically you can, especially if you get good at scalping, you can actually make profit on the wicks, right? You can actually make profit on the rejections on both sides, the upper side and the lower side, right? Well, there, what you'd want to do is instead of selecting the close, is selecting the high. Now you're getting different numbers, right? And if we put the length back to 1, right, you'll see here, and this is really pronounced actually on the day. If we go to let's try the 1 hour. So on the 1 hour, what it's doing is it's showing us the high price, right? It's no longer showing us the actual close. It's showing what's the highest it got, right? And if we go to the daily here, we can see here some of these days, like this day here that had a huge rejection, right? 27% rejection. You're just seeing that when you use the actual high, you're definitely getting the maximum amount of profit that you could capture if you're actively trading that and you're putting your exits or your entries at the lowest point possible, right? So I would generally say that you don't use the high unless you're actually scalp trading, because typically on scalp trading, you are doing something at a lower time frame. So you're looking at the 15 minutes, right? 15 minutes is typically what you're looking at. And then on the 15-minute, what you're doing from there is that you're actually, when you're using the high, it's telling you, or you're looking at the high, and when you're scalp trading, you're typically watching that chart a lot closer, right? So then, and you're putting your profit points at points that make sense based on recency of support and resistance and higher levels of support and resistance. So you do have the potential to actually exit at those rejection points or enter at those rejection points as well. So that's one way to look at it. I'll put this to 4. And for some reason, oh, that's why. So here, Now, if we go to a lower time frame, like 5 minutes, let's say you like to scalp on the 5 minutes, you can also see here, well, how often, if I'm looking to just be in a trade within 5 minutes, is there a time where I could do scalp trading, right? And within a short amount of time, does it hit a 1% potential, right? So the 1% line here, right, is right here. This is the 1% line, okay? And if we put a horizontal ray there on 1%, we can see how many times it hits 1%, right? How often does it hit 1%? We can also do this on the inverse if you're buying retracements and say, how often does it go down? And then how often does it actually bounce back up to the 0 line on 1% on the 5 minute time frame, right? So this shows you that on this chart, there's plenty of opportunity, right, to make 1% moves if that's what you're looking for a profit potential, right? If you're looking for scalping for 1%, then we can see here that there's quite a few entries throughout the day for these 1%. And there's even some entries that are a little bit better as it exceeds that, right? So hopefully this is clear using the rate of change. And we're using the 4 time frame here. I think on the 5 minute, you probably would use probably something closer to 8, maybe. It all depends. You know, this depends on the individual instrument. One tip I'll give you is that what you want to look for is when you see big retracements, right? You don't want to get captured there. You don't want to, if you're doing scalp trading, right? You don't want to get caught on a big retracement that doesn't have a quick turnaround, okay? So what you want to do with the rate of change is capture those biggest retracements so that you have the safest trades, all right? And there's a particular way that I go through in doing that. It's too lengthy in this video, but I have a specific video that just covers that. But when you capture that, then your scalp trading becomes very high. You have a high percentage of wins in your scalp trading when you capture that. Okay, so that's and it took me quite a while to figure that aspect out. But when you figure that out, then there are times when you clearly know when to enter a scalp trade, and then there's times when it's very clear that you don't enter a scalp trade. Okay, so I think that's one of the factors among many others that the reason why I have a really high win rate with scalping is because I've analyzed these assets at this level, and I clearly know when to scalp, and I clearly know when not to scalp, right? So very seldom do I enter a trade unless there's many things in alignment. This is one of those things. So the rate of change I found very helpful in figuring that out and getting a general feel per instrument on how to look at that. Okay, so hopefully this video helped. If you have any comments, any questions, please leave a comment down below. Also, you will see links to various tools that I use, links to the Discord group. Definitely join us there. There's a document that I update quite frequently about what I've learned in crypto trading. So I really share kind of my thinking on the crypto market, how to trade cryptos and stuff like that. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.